Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 12 of Inbound Now. Today we are graced with the presence of our very own Mr. Mike Volpe. Mike is the VP here of marketing here at HubSpot. He's the host of my rival show, HubSpot TV. And he's also a professional speaker. He travels all around talking about B2B marketing. So welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks. Super happy to be here. It's been watching what you've been doing, and we're scared over at HubSpot TV of the competition.
Yeah, it's heating up, man. It's heating up. But so I wanted to get you on the show today to talk about some B2B marketing best practices, because I know you're an expert at it and you've been doing it for some time now, and you've seen some tremendous results. So
yeah, let's dive into it. I love talking about this stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So you're definitely a passionate guy about B2B marketing. So what in your mind is the biggest difference between B2B marketing and B2C marketing?
Yeah, to me, I think the biggest difference is just sort of the potentially the number of people involved in the process, the complexity of the process, and sort of the length of the process. And all those things are sort of linked, because typically for B2B, the sales cycle is longer. It's a more complicated sales process because it might involve multiple purchasers and beyond even then, a husband and wife or something like that. It could be, 4, 5, 6, 10 people sometimes. And then, it's typically a longer sales process and evaluation process. So there are some things in the B2C realm, like maybe buying a house or things like that get closer to being similar to that B2B process. Right. And some things on the B2B side that are closer to a consumer process, like a really cheap web product that might be 30 or 40 bucks, or buying some office supplies or things like that. So there's definitely some overlap between the two, but I think B2B tends to be more complex, longer sales process.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you approach it in a different way then? With a longer sales process, there would be, I guess, more nurturing of a customer, would you say?
Nurturing, of customers, leads, that whole process. I mean, I think that, in B2B, you typically talk about sort of top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, working with the sales team, and sort of what are the different things you're doing at all those different stages. Whereas for a B2C process, for most of the time, it's just, it's get people to the site, and you're sort of like, here are the products, would you like to buy them? And for B2B, typically, there's an information and education sort of process that's happening there.
Okay, cool. So with social media, do you think that what department should own social media? Should marketing at a B2B company be own social media, or should it be kind of spread out between departments? Like, what's your view on that?
It's a great question, and I'm super glad you asked that, because I'm sort of on this new tirade in the past few months about this, which I'm sure you've seen, which is probably why you're asking the question. Here's the thing: social media is not a strategy; it's a technology. And just like when phones were introduced, you didn't have a phone department, or one department was responsible for the phone. Same thing with email. It wasn't like, oh well, we need to add an email department. I don't understand why people are adding like a social media person or whatever. It's just, I feel like what you need to do is take this technology and apply it across the entire company. So marketing should use social media, customer support should use it, sales should use it, finance should use it. Everyone within the company, there are uses for social media technologies in how they do their jobs.
Right.
And so I actually think it should be spread out throughout the company. Now, maybe initially when you're starting to adopt some of these tools and technologies, marketing could be a great place to start to maybe show some leadership across the company and start to implement them across. But to me, social media is much more of a technology, and things like inbound marketing are a strategy, where you're saying, okay, well, I want to change the way I do marketing to attract people into my company. What are the tools and technologies I want to use? That social media is one, blogging's another, SEO's another.
Right.
So to me, things like inbound marketing are a change in strategy. Social media is a technology and a tool. It's important, but it's not like the only thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say, I'm thinking about it, like maybe social media is its own kind of like department in a lot of companies, because there's a kind of, it's a newer technology, and there's kind of like maybe an age barrier, like kind of stigma around it.
I think people are scared of it too. And anytime there's something new, people try to figure out how to use it. And at least those companies that have the social media department are, at least they're trying, whereas a lot of other companies are not trying. So I give them credit for trying. I just think they could be trying. They could be doing something else that would be more effective.
Right. Okay. So on the subject of social media, how, do you have any tips on how to, companies can get measurable results and kind of get the ROI out of their social media efforts?
Yeah, I mean, again, social media can be used for so many things. It can be used to help your content spread. It can be used to communicate with prospects, used to communicate with customers. It's just sort of a new communication channel. We get a ton of ROI out of our social media efforts. We've got, especially for B2B companies, one of the largest followings on Facebook and Twitter. It's bigger than Salesforce.com, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. And because we put these efforts in, we can see and measure the number of visitors coming to our site, the number of leads we're getting from social media, and the influence that has on the amount of sales and the number of customers we're getting. So I think there's definitely a bunch of things you can do to measure it. And I think that if you do it right and use it not as sort of one individual tool, but to kind of spread it throughout your marketing and sales process, it can be really, really effective.
Right. And it's kind of like tying that loop back, okay, so this person came originally to HubSpot from Twitter, and we can close that loop. So it's
exactly right. So it's to your point, like you use the exact words, it's that closed loop marketing that you really want to look for. And I think so many marketers have all these individual tools, a tool that measures things at the top of the funnel, something else that may be gathering their leads, and something else that maybe their sales team uses. Unless you either have one tool that works across that whole process or have some intricate ways of linking all those tools and building some code to make them all talk to each other, you're not going to get that kind of reporting. And I think that's not having that kind of closed loop reporting is a big struggle for a lot of marketers.
Right. And then that's kind of how they struggle reporting that ROI. But there's a huge debate out there about social media ROI. Should it be, exact traffic to here and, kind of closing that loop? It's kind of murky in a lot of companies. But what about the spillover effects of social media?
Yes, there are definitely spillover effects of social media. We see that. We see when things, go hot and there's a lot of conversation around a topic, other metrics of ours improve. But there's spillover effects of almost every type of marketing. When we send a big email blast, we actually see people tweeting and sharing that email, right? So there's spillover effects from email into social media. There's spillover effects when you do any sort of, display advertising. Typically, you'll see an increase in the number of people searching for your brand and typing in, direct traffic to your website. When we do a really good email blast, we'll actually see an increase in direct traffic to our website as well, because people maybe see it on one device. The next day, they just go to the website without actually clicking a link in the email. There's spillover effects for every type of marketing, and I think that's what you need to understand is when you're measuring the individual channels, understand what those metrics are and is that channel worth it, but also understand that there are also these sort of cross-pollination effects and spillover effects that happen as well.
Right.
And you want to get both of those.
Exactly. Cool. So speaking of channels, what do you think is more important, the channel that a company is using or the content strategy in which they're using on said channel?
To me, the sort of everything that ties it together in terms of what is that inbound marketing strategy is what's most important. So to me, it's much more about what you have to say than where or how you're saying it. We found that our most successful offers that do well in maybe our house email list also do well in social media. They also do well in our blog, versus things that maybe don't do well in social media probably also don't seem like they don't do as well in some of the other channels too. So to me, it's much more of a, take your inbound marketing strategy, figure out who those personas are you're trying to reach, what is the content you're going to use to reach and attract them, and then share that content through a whole bunch of different means. And that content promotion that you're using as part of your inbound marketing strategy should be social media, it should be email, it should be your blog, it should be your website, it should be everything. If you're still going to trade shows and things like that, there's no reason not to use that content at those events as well.
Right, totally. So speaking of growing your social media outreach and what have you, growing your fan base, so there's a lot of talk in the industry what's the relative value of a fan or of a follower? Do you think that it's worth investing in different mediums like Facebook or Twitter to grow those fan bases?
Yeah, so yes, there is absolutely a value in those things. I think most people, most marketers, most B2B marketers have some sense of the value of an additional name in their database in terms of like an email address or mailing address or phone number. I would say that if you take sort of like the evolution of the marketing database, and maybe it started way back when there was like the Sears and Roebuck catalog and the Montgomery Ward catalog were some of the first mail order catalogs. You had a mail database and you would send people catalogs and they would send their orders back to you. And then the phone came out and you added phone numbers to your database. Oh, here's another column, let's add a phone number. And guess what? And then email came out and you're like, oh, well, we're just gonna add another column. We've got email too. So now I can contact David, I can send him a piece of mail, I can call him, I can email him, great. Well, now you've got Twitter, Facebook, you've got blogging, you've got all these different social media tools. To me, those are just further evolution of the marketing database.
Right.
And there's no reason to necessarily think of them that differently now. Again, there are different ways of communicating with you, and so something I would send you in the mail, I might not call you about, or I might not email you about, or vice versa. That's also true of social media. Like, I'm not going to necessarily DM you a link to a catalog or something like that, but so you need to understand what these different channels are, but it's just another way of communicating with people. And I think that most marketers are really, really scared of this, but it's happened before. We had the phone came out, right? And I was, what are we gonna do with the phone? What's just another column in your database? Same thing with email, and I really think social media is just another way of keeping in touch with people. It's more permission centric. There's things that are a little bit different about it, but to me, I think about that evolution of the database when I start to think about that.
Right. And you see a lot of companies out there integrating social CRM to pull in these pieces of data.
Yeah.
To kind of
very exciting. I don't know that anyone's really come up with the right product in that space. Really, really exciting area. I think there's some people that are trying to figure out, well, do we incorporate things in? You get Salesforce.com doing some stuff. You get a bunch of startups. You've got Batchbook, and you've got Nimble, and there's like Constant Contact just bought a company too, and there's a lot of activity in that space. I haven't found in this products that somebody's really, really nailed all the right use cases yet, because I still think that what we as marketers want to do with that stuff is sort of evolving, and we're not totally sure yet.
Right.
But that's definitely the direction things are headed. So I think today, the basic advice for marketers today is build up your fan bases and build up your following, because it's going to help you across every aspect of your marketing.
Right. And there's, I guess we're still waiting to see the SEO implications of social.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of talk about it, right?
There's a lot of talk about it, and I think some of the recent interviews, I think it was Danny Sullivan from Search Engine Land did some of these interviews and basically confirmed from Google and Bing that especially links that are shared through social media are starting to accrue SEO authority, and that even some of them are looking at who tweeted this link, and if they have more followers, it might be a more authoritative link that's been tweeted. Okay. So some of that stuff is already starting to make it in. That came out I think it was about 6 weeks ago. There was kind of an interview that surprisingly hasn't been publicized a ton yet, but even if it's only in there a little bit today, I think everyone believes and knows that it's going to be more and more important in the future. So yeah, it's like if you're not building up your Facebook and your Twitter following today, you're basically dooming yourself to bad results in SEO in the future.
Right. I think, right now they're trying to figure out that algorithm, because right now, anyone can make a social media account. You can make 1,000, Twitter spam accounts, and it's kind of easier to game right now, but I think they're getting better at policing that.
Yeah.
And I think, once that kind of happens and the algorithm falls into place, I think it will have, social search will have a huge impact on, results. So.
Absolutely.
Totally. So, you mentioned, someone tweeting that may be more authoritative, has more followers, may, have more weight in the ranking, factors, and we'll see if that happens. But speaking about people, influential people, how do you feel about Clout Score and kind of the stuff being talked about that, where, people with more followers and kind of a more reach are getting a higher score and they're getting perks and all this other stuff? Where do you see that going, and do you see companies kind of leveraging those people with a higher Clout Score rather than, their fan with 3 Twitter followers?
I mean, I think that concept has always existed. I just think what's different now is with the data that's available, you can actually assign a more refined score to it.
Right.
So from an outreach perspective, you've always thought about, this reporter publishes for this publication, and here's the number of people that subscribe to it, and this one publishes for this other publication, they have half as many subscribers, or this person seems like they're really influential in our customer community because they are a leader of one of our largest user groups, things like that, right? Those are all things that I used to think about, prior to this age that we live in now, when I was doing B2B marketing beforehand, right? That whole notion is just like, well, now we're just starting to roll that up into scores, and there's, we sort of started actually started a lot of this phase in terms of measuring people's Twitter authority with Twitter Grader. Unfortunately, as a company, it's like we haven't invested as much in that because it's one of our 20 different things that we're working on, right? And so, it's like that was sort of one of the original ones. I think Clout is a really good one. There's, Twinfluence was one that was doing that type of stuff for a while. There's a whole bunch of different tools that are trying to do that. I think it's going to be more interesting if people can start to pull in things across multiple channels over time. Right. That'll be interesting. So it's like, okay, well, here's their following on Facebook, Twitter, their blog, all these different things. And it's definitely a tool that you should think about as a marketer. I mean, you probably would want to do extra special things for your customers that have this big following. Why wouldn't you do that?
Right. I mean, I think the data right now is imperfect, but it's still kind of an indicator, kind of to vet out stuff really quickly. Okay, so let's cut out these people and kind of focus.
I mean,
on
if you're kind of a mid-sized brand and you're getting a couple hundred people tweeting at you per day, and you can only respond to like a small number of them or something like that,
Right.
then yeah, that's one way you might want to think about it. Or especially maybe not the people replying to you, but people that just happen to mention your brand. Maybe you want to focus on the top 10% that seem to
Right.
have larger followings. Yeah, I think it's useful and it's interesting data.
Okay, cool. All right, so I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about marketing personas. So basically, companies making a personality around their typical customer. And do you think it's a necessity for B2B companies to kind of start thinking about their customers in this way?
I think it's absolutely a necessity. I think that this is something where sometimes B2C in certain areas leads B2B. And this is something that I think B2C companies have been doing for a long time. I know that there's a local drugstore chain, CVS, and they actually redesigned all of their stores. And they had, I think it was like 11 different personas based on the type of people that shop in their stores. And when they went through this whole store redesign and moving things around inside all their different stores, they actually thought about every single one of those people. And it's like, they had an elderly woman who comes in every week to pick up prescriptions. Well, how does the store work for her? And maybe the aisles need to be wider because a lot of them have walkers or things like that, right? Then there's kind of the young sort of urban person that uses the store as kind of a convenience store, things like that. And they thought about every single one of those personas and how they use their stores and how that redesign would affect all those personas. That same type of thing should absolutely be applied to B2B. So we've got two personas that we think about at HubSpot. And we think about the content that we publish. Is that going to be interesting to them? We think about our products and the features we're building. Is that interesting to them? We think about the sales process. These people, we have two personas. Each of them actually have slightly different needs during the sales process. You need to interact with them differently. One of them you actually can get a little bit more aggressive with and push. The other one, that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. You need to be a little bit more passive and sort of, just kind of be a little bit more helpful and answer more questions. So customer support is different for the two of them. The amount of services they need and the type of services they need is different. So I really think that once you have those personas nailed, it helps you a ton in terms of the strategy across your entire company, but especially in marketing in terms of the type of content and the things that you're offering them.
Right.
Yeah.
I really think it can help solidify the stuff that you're doing. Instead of trying to go after everyone, you can kind of narrow it down and focus specific efforts on a specific, target market. So
Yeah, totally
I think
agree.
it's brilliant. So, okay, so we have a question from Twitter, a fan,
Yes, yeah.
a fan question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kimberly Kahatsu, sorry about that, at Callfire Marketing asks, what social media channels would you recommend for a B2B tech company?
Yeah, it's interesting because we do lots of research and we gather lots of data here at HubSpot, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we've asked people is we looked at both B2B and B2C companies, small and mid-sized companies, what their more successful channels were in terms of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. B2B had a big advantage in LinkedIn. B2B, LinkedIn is much more of a B2B community. That makes sense. So if you're a B2B tech company, I would definitely recommend LinkedIn. Twitter was actually, depending who you ask and how, it's relatively close between B2B and B2C. Facebook tends to be a little bit more of a B2C medium. If you have the time and sort of ability to do all three, I think all three can be great. But if I were a tech company, I would start with LinkedIn, then Twitter next, and then Facebook after that.
Right.
That's how I would think about it.
So with the recent changes with Facebook fan pages,
Yeah.
right? You can now serve Facebook as your actual, fan page brand name.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. I'm interested to see how that's going to affect how B2B is done on Facebook. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts there?
I don't know. I think some of those changes are really interesting. Also, they're making it a little easier for you to get other pieces of content from the web back into your Facebook page because they've gone away from the whole FBML and now they're doing iframes. And,
Right.
and one of the things that we're actually about to have at HubSpot is this a tool that a guy built internally to take your HubSpot landing page, your form,
Right.
and put it into your Facebook page. So you can actually be generating leads on your website, but on your Facebook page, which is
Right,
kind of
right.
cool and good for a B2B company too. So I don't know. I still think that psychologically, most people feel like Facebook is for their personal friends, LinkedIn is for their business connections. I know I use both for both,
Right.
but I still think some people have this aversion to using Facebook for business, and I don't know. I mean, but that being said, we have over 20,000 fans of our page.
Right.
You know, we're a B2B software company, so I don't know. Yeah.
Something's working. So yeah. So okay. So I know this is Inbound Now, and we're talking about current stuff going on.
Yeah.
But let's take a look into the future.
All right.
How about that?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. So moving into 2011, what are you keeping a close eye on? What should people be keeping an eye on? Moving into the future.
Yeah. So I think there's two things that I'm really curious about how they play out. The first one is sort of this theme of integration, and I think that social media has been hot for the last year to 2 years. I think 2011. I hope that it will be the year of much more integration and thinking about how all these technologies play into a much more robust strategy. And here we are. We're on Inbound Now. It's like, well, the big strategy shift you should make is from outbound to inbound because it's more cost effective. It's less interruptive. There's so many benefits that go along with it. And social media should be one of those things, but you need to think about not how do I incorporate social media into my outbound marketing, but how do I change my entire marketing strategy and incorporate social media and all these things. So that first trend is integration. The second trend is mobile, and people have been talking about mobile for a really, really long time. Back even we were thinking about 5, 6, 7 years ago. How do we incorporate mobile into B2B, and no one really figured it out. I do think that now between BlackBerry, Android, and iPhone as these different platforms that have a lot more capabilities on the device and are becoming a lot more mainstream, that especially for B2B, I think mobile is going to be something you need to start to think about. So more and more, I think of your web traffic is going to be from mobile devices. Certainly email, if you're doing email marketing to your opt-in list, you need to make sure that your emails are being optimized for mobile devices because everyone especially in the B2B world, I think tons of people read email on mobile devices. So that's sort of that second trend that I was just thinking about, like how is mobile going to affect every aspect of what we're doing? Social media is highly mobile enabled as well. So it's like, people are using Facebook and Twitter clients, on their mobile devices, things like that. So yeah, kind of integration and mobile are the two things that I think are going to be big this year and people should worry about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if your website is not easily readable on a mobile device, I mean, you're shooting yourself in the foot, really. So definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So Mike, where can people find you online?
Lots of places. So my personal site is MikeVolpe.com. But there's these search engines, and if you type my name in there, all kinds of fun stuff comes up. And I spend most of my great blog articles end up on the HubSpot blog, which is blog.hubspot.com. And maybe I don't know if I can pitch a competitive show on your show, but it's like I gave you a plug last week. So every Friday we do a live show, HubSpot TV. So it's HubSpot.tv every Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern, and we have guests, we have some fun, and chit chat about some marketing topics. So less in depth than this show, I think, is what I would say.
Right.
But it's kind of Friday afternoon. We try to have a little fun with it.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of HubSpot TV. That's kind of how I got my job here at HubSpot.
Yeah, it's true.
And it was kind of an inspiration for starting this one. So
totally.
Mike, thanks for
Fantastic.
coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks a ton.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
we'll
my
get
pleasure.
you back sometime.
Yeah, I'll do it anytime.
All right. Cool.